Hello, everyone. Welcome back to A Turn of Events, where we help put a positive spin on the future of your business. Have you ever wondered how to provide effective communication with your brand? Well, we are going to learn that today from my next guest. We're going to talk about creating a brand that matters. And I'm excited about this because I'm kind of in the middle of thinking about changing up my brand or just a little bit. I need to spice things up a little bit, but I'm Annette Naif, the CEO and creative director of Naif Productions. We are a strategic event production company based in New York City. We do events all over the world, but we do corporate, social, nonprofit, and weddings. If you are looking to do an event, whether it's live, hybrid, or virtual, some people are still doing virtual, and we do an aspect of it. We can do a hybrid where we do a live with a virtual aspect to it. So been doing that for a really long time, but happy to consult with you if you still want to do a virtual event and don't know how to take a live event to a virtual platform. Happy to help you with that. Okay, so if you are a wedding and event planner and you are looking to start your own business, or you are struggling in your current business, join me over on my Facebook page, or Facebook group, I should say, Event Planner Society. Great people over there. The interaction is amazing. We're just so many great tips I'm offering. I'm going to be doing a workshop coming up here soon. My team is working super hard on pulling this together for you guys. I know a lot of people have been waiting for it. We've been kind of busy, which is really great, but I want to offer my workshop for you guys. So get on there. Get over to my Facebook group, Event Planner Society, and join us. All right, so let's get started here. My next guest is David Langton. David believes in using the power of design to promote, educate, entertain, and inform, especially in the small business and nonprofit space where there is a clear need for effective communication. His team has worked with a range of businesses. They launched a national wellness program for Pfizer and managed it for 10 years. They have created brands and websites for insurance companies and designed campaigns for Fortune 500 companies with consultancies like EY, Deloitte, and Mercer. They have worked with numerous organizations, including Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation, and the Children's Aid Foundation, Children's Aid, the International Rescue Community, and the Legal Aid Society. For over 10 years, David has been teaching communication design and media studies courses at Hostos College. I think I said that right. CUNY in the Bronx. David, welcome. Did I say that right?
It's Hostos.
Hostos. But I mean, better than host. Yeah.
In the Bronx.
All right. So I'm so happy to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, that's a very impressive little bio you have there.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into doing all of this, so the audience can kind of get to know you a little bit.
Well, I went to the Rhode Island School of Design, and I'm from the state of Rhode Island, which people think is like, oh, of course you went to the Rhode Island School of Design, but it's actually very unusual. There weren't very many homeboys or homegirls at the school. It attracts people from all over the world. So while I was there, people made fun of the way I talked, and I would say, wait a minute, this is how we talk in Rhode Island. So
yeah.
From there, I moved to New York after graduating, and I've been here ever since. So very excited to speak to you about that.
Yes, very exciting. Okay, so let's jump in. We got lots of stuff to cover here. And if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get them answered for you. So what are the signs that your brand needs to be refreshed? And I'm all ears on this.
Well, that's a common question because, and we like to talk about a refresh as opposed to just a complete redo.
Right.
There's some legacy often in your brand that you want to keep.
Correct.
So, first of all, it's like defining what your brand is. So we like to say the brand is what other people think of you. It should arrive before you do, and it should stay after you leave. It's impressions that you leave. It's based on how you act, on your reputation. Your brand is really all these elements. Mm-hmm. And as much as we try to control our brand, we can't completely control it because it's not what we think. It's in the hearts and minds of our audience. So
Right.
that's the first thing in terms of understanding brand. And then when you're looking at why or when it's time to redo it, um, readability is the first issue. So if your brand is hard to read, can't figure out what it is, that's one sign. Um, Heritage can be a really good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. So sometimes your brand is holding you back because things are digital and technical, and you're looking like, old school, and it's the Pony Express. So you need to upgrade. And it doesn't mean throw it all out, but it means you need to shift. Another is just conceptually, is your brand on target? So one of the issues is, does your brand reflect who it is that you want to be? And sometimes a brand doesn't do that anymore because it was started one way and it turned another way.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's a matter of a shift. We did a really nice rebranding for a nonprofit on Long Island that was called iPro.
Mm-hmm.
And iPro was named for the Island Peer Review Organization, which was supposed to be an agency that worked with Medicare to see how different parts of Long Island were communicating. But the reality was that even a year within their establishing the company, Medicare didn't work there anymore. It worked statewide. It was not about inner island. So when everyone said, "What's your name?" and they'd say, "The Island Peer," and they go, "No, just say iPro." And we rebranded iPro, which had kind of a cool, iPhone, iPod. It already had that kind of going for it.
Right.
So we were able to refresh the brand without changing the name in this case. But that was a good example of how the concept and the heritage were being lost because the meaning had changed.
Yeah.
The organization continues to grow, and it's been extremely successful.
So one thing you mentioned, did you have something else to add?
I have one more thing, which is that sometimes I call it kind of lost in space. Like sometimes you have a logo that either looks just like everybody else's or is nondescript. And that's kind of like the lost in space reason why it's time to relook at your logo. Like you need to be distinctive and you need to be something that people can recognize.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that
yeah, for sure. I've rebranded probably 4 or 5 times. I've had my business for 13 years now, and I've rebranded like 4 or 5 times, like I said. I'm now like happy with the brand. I could, the figuring out the name and the color, like all of that stuff. There's so much more. It's not just the name of your company, right? It's not just the name.
right.
It's a combination of
like
a lot.
everything you do.
Right. So, but part of that was my logo is a really, really important thing because it's what people really look at a lot is your logo. So I really wanted to, get something. It took a while to figure it out. And so I'm happy with it. I'll probably stick with it always, and you never know. But now I'm in the feeling of there's one thing you said, and I'll mention what I was about to say, but there's one thing that you said was brand is easy. You want to make sure that your brand is easy to read. What does that mean?
So some of it is just simply like, can you figure out what that NAIF is in your logo? And you can. So but there are some where you can't, where people have used twisted letters, or a lot of times what happens is your logo has to work almost now like almost like on the head of a pin. Like your logo has to look identifiable in the tiniest little spot on your social media feed, in that tiny little circle. And so logos have to be very simple. So a lot of times people come to us with all these really complicated ideas about what they're all about. And we're like, well, the logo can't reflect, it can reflect those values if you are expressing them through all your marketing and communication, but it can't define it visually. It has to be a very simple. I mean, we talk about the logos like, the Nike logo. Everyone talks about how great the Nike logo is. But when you really look at it, it's just a check mark. And it's supposed to be the wing of Nike, which is where they got the concept from, which is great. But the reason you know it is because they spend billions of dollars on marketing and communication, and they do use it really well. And it shows up in those tiny little spaces, and it fits on the top of the bottom of your shoe. Like it works in all those little tiny places.
Right. I just added, I just did a presentation yesterday for an event in our industry, which is really cool. It's the first time it's funny because I speak a lot. I have done a lot of speaking over the years, but I've never done a presentation with a PowerPoint. But wow, it's great. Yeah. But you got to keep moving, right? You can't. So I learned a big lesson yesterday, but it was great. It was so much fun. And we, we branded every single slide with
Mhm.
that tiny little logo. And, it makes a difference. It was just there and, to make them see it. And I have a couple different versions where the bottom, like I have the logo and then my name is on the bottom of the logo, like Naif Productions. And then I have it also where it's on the side. So we did a couple of variations,
Yeah.
which is good.
That's really good because a lot of times what happens, you have a long, narrow space, or
Right.
again, we're always like, that kind of toughest spot is actually the one that people see the most, which is like when it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter,
Right.
tiny little spot, and it has to work there. And then we
Correct.
work backwards and make
Yeah,
sure it
yeah.
looks good when you have to blow it up and put it in the background.
Exactly, exactly. So great. Okay, so what's involved in doing a branding project? What steps do you go through?
So the first thing we do is, well, first of all, if it's aligned with like a bigger marketing program, then we're working with branding specialists who do naming and do positioning and marketing and communications. If it's strictly a logo program, then we start with a kickoff meeting, and we
Mhm.
want to get at the core of what your organization's about. We want to know your mission, but not like the mission statement that's like the kind of, the
Yeah,
boring thing. We want to know, like, we call it a vision statement. We want to know what makes you tick, what makes you different from everybody else in your space. Why should we hire you, or why should we donate to your foundation? And once we get an understanding of who you are, and we do that over the course of a few weeks, we meet with you. We set up, we do some research. We ask you lots of questions. We might post a questionnaire. We want to do this research so that when we start sketching, we're sketching to something that's real. So we do a ton of sketches, but we do it after we've had a chance to know who you
sure.
are.
Right.
And then after we pull all of our sketches together, we'll start to add typography and we'll make a presentation for you. And the next part that's really important is we want to present it to you and hear your feedback. So we don't just send it to you. We actually set it up either in person or via Zoom, and
Right.
we make the presentation with the criteria. Here's what we're thinking. And we want to hear what you think about it.
Right.
And then we say, you can pick a logo right now, but we may not accept that. Like, we're not interested in you picking a logo on the first meeting. What we want is feedback.
Right.
And then we want to narrow it down to a couple of concepts, come back again. Here's what you told us, and here's why we think these are more aligned with your mission and what you need. So we
Right.
will do a refresh, a refinement built into the process. Then we select one, and at that point, we actually build the real artwork. And as you were noting, like, the artwork not only does it have to be vertical and horizontal, it also needs to work in digital spaces, print
Mhm.
spaces, what we call experiential spaces, so that
Mhm.
it's up on the wall at an event, it holds up.
Yeah.
So there's all those things that we're thinking about after you've approved the artwork. And then we create a brand book, which has all the rules and regulations, the typography, the colors, the environment that the logo can be in.
That's great. That's a really great process. How long does that usually take? I mean, I guess it could depend on the client too,
It
right?
does depend on the client, and a lot of it is the availability of the client and how many people are involved on the client side. And
Yeah,
that's
lots of
also a really
opinions.
important thing. We always want to have the CEO or the executive director involved in
Right.
the process, because we don't want to like surprise them later. We actually want their input. We want to hear their feedback. And so one of the first things we're doing in those initial meetings is saying, okay, who is on the team? And with large nonprofits, we'll ask them to put together a brand task force, which usually includes the CEO, the marketing director, the development director, and 2 or 3 members of the board, and maybe another staff person. And
Wow.
then we have a cross section of people, and they are the soundboard.
Yeah.
And they make all the decisions, and then they bring it back to the board for for an approval. But
Right.
after they've said, this is what we want to do.
That's really tough because there's a lot of opinions in that
There
process.
is.
I deal with a lot of nonprofits. And boy, oh boy, I'm lucky enough that I, deal with the executive director and they go to the board. I generally don't have to talk to the board and they kind of have to make their, but it's a process that I have to wait, for a while to go through, but I get that. So, doing events with nonprofits, it's a challenge because there's a lot of people involved, a lot of opinions, but it helps. That's how they move. They have a committee and on the committee, there's 10 people and then you've got your board with 10 people. So it's a whole lot of opinions, but Anyway, and usually the ones who like bark the loudest do the least amount of work. It's always the way, right? It's always those ones. Anyway, so all right, that's a really great process. It sounds like you really have some great systems in place, which is really important. So how can we be sure that the client will like the new brand? So that's always tough, right? And I just want to mention something about, you get them on the phone and you present that to them, and you don't just send them the information. And that's what I was talking about yesterday in my class was, when I have a proposal with a client, I don't just send the proposal and let them just look at it. And I want to get back on with them and present it to them again. And I think that's really, really important, because it's kind of like you're getting another chance to sell yourself again. Although I don't really act like I'm selling, but I am explaining and going through all the great things and, all the stuff we're going to do for them. And here's what it's going to cost. And then they have it's always good to see their initial feelings about it, because you're going to be able to read what they like, didn't like, and all of that good stuff without taking it back to everybody, and then you don't hear from them. So I never really like to do that. So I think that's a really, really great idea. And I say that it's really an important piece of presenting your proposal or whatever it is. So I think that's great. All right. So how can we be sure that the client will like the new brand?
Well, part of it is getting the buy-in. And I often start the presentation by saying, this is an unnatural, unreal situation. No one's going to look at your logo the way you do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important that we establish some rules and also some context. So we're evaluating it, trying to understand how your audience is going to like the logo, not how you personally are going to like the logo. That's a little tricky, because you do obviously want your client to love the logo. But because they're in the process from the beginning, we're getting their input, we're getting their feedback. By the time we get to the third round, there's already been a lot of buy-in and a lot of consensus.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we, there's some subjectivity to it, but we're reacting to their reactions.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe the first round is going to be, we're trying stuff out on them that doesn't feel like it's a good fit. So the second round has to be really on. But usually by then, we've been working with them for 3 or 4 weeks, and we've gotten to know them, and they've gotten to know us, and we're ready to explore some ideas that really feel like they resonate with the client. So that's the important part. And then we also, again, we reflect back, who's it for? What are the impressions you want to make with these key people?
Right.
So talk about that. It's better than how this logo is going to look on, on my business card, or, we always say the painting above the couch. That's not what we're trying to do here. It may look nice in your house, but is that the appropriate image to promote your organization?
Right. What I did was, because I wanted to I know what it says, right? I know what my logo says, right? But I wanted to make sure that other people could read it who didn't know me. So I had some of my friends send out to people who didn't know, completely out of my market, which was kind of tough to find, but that didn't know, the market. So they got it. They knew it. They knew exactly what it looked like. And that was important to me to understand, to make sure that it's legible and it looks like what it's supposed to look like. Right. So I did that. I sent it out to people that didn't know. So it was a great way to do that.
That's great.
Yeah. And I also hate asking opinions about things, because when you start asking a bunch of people about do you like this, you're going to start getting all kinds of different information. So you kind of have to go with what you like as well. So that makes a difference.
Right. So we try to take that whole part out, which I know is very, very hard, but we try to, when I teach design classes, I talk to them about how we have to, look at the form, the meaning, and the function. And, it's kind of classic, design perspective, but you want to look at the form. Is it legible? How's the craft? What are the colors like just from what are the shapes? What is it that you're trying to do? And then you want to look at the meaning. What does that mean to people?
Mm-hmm.
So is it upbeat? Is it for banking and insurance clients, you want to make sure things are very trustworthy and solid,
Right.
And for some of the other organizations like Children's Aid, you want things to be a little more playful, even though they deal with serious stuff. You want things to be very welcoming and feel like they're in the marketplace that they work in.
Right.
So,
and fonts make a big difference.
Yeah, fonts can certainly have certain styles and certain things that are
Right. Okay, great. So I think you've answered this, but can a new logo turn around a company?
Well, I always say no. And I know that sounds like, well, what do you mean? But I think it's really important that people understand the logo doesn't drive the company. The
Right.
logo reflects the company. And the greatest logo designers in the world can't turn a company around. And Paul Rand, who was and considered one of the greatest logo designers of all, he designed the IBM logo and the ABC logo and the UPS logo and these classic logos. He also designed the Enron logo. And Enron, anybody in finance knows, was a disaster. And so the company, it reflected the company. So when people saw that Enron logo, their like response was, oh, not because the logo's bad, because actually the logo was doing its job, which was reflecting the
Right.
state of the company. So as that company collapsed, the image of the logo reflects that collapse. So
Right.
your logo is a reflection. It's not what makes a company good.
That's a great thing. I mean, I think this ties into too when I tell don't get when people are my wedding event planners are looking to start a business, they get so stuck on what am I going to call myself, what's the business name and all of that. I said, don't worry about that, just let's get started, let's get you some clients, let's get going. People don't care if you're called Mickey Mouse Events. They don't care. They're going to care about you and your services and what you're about, and do you, are you part of their values and what they want, all of that. Do you represent what they're going to love in, doing an event with them? So I
Mhm.
always kind of say that in a cheeky kind of way, but and I'm guilty of it because I did it. So I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, we
it
all
took
are.
me, oh my God, it was like hell trying. My first name of my company was ALN Event Management or ALN Management or something. It had nothing to do with events. ALN are my initials. It sounded more like, I don't know, an insurance company or something. So it wasn't anything, but eventually you get there, right? Okay. So how do you come up with ideas for a new logo?
So this is always, I think, the most fun because that's what I love to do. Sometimes it's like go for a walk with a dog. You need to get out of your space
Right.
and get out. And I will find that my head starts to like look at things. I like patterns, and I will see like a manhole cover. I go, ooh, I wonder if that would work. It doesn't always work, but it's like you want to look at things that are outside and see how they relate, how they think. And,
Mhm.
it jars your thinking a little bit. There's
Yeah.
also, we do a lot of research. So we will be doing a lot of searches in the company and in the company's category. And then we also look outside a category for inspiration. So we're doing all these things to try to like jar in new ideas. The other thing I like to do, I have this book on my bookshelf here. Um, it's it's a song book by Jeff Tweedy, and it's called How to Write a Song. But it's full of exercises that he uses to write songs, and some of them are about clipping things from magazines and trying to make associations between them, because sometimes you just need to get your head thinking differently.
Right.
And that classic idea of like you're working on something and it's just not working, and then when you're in the shower, all of a sudden it clicks.
Right.
It does happen because
It's
I think
crazy.
there's like a secondary unconscious part of your mind that's the creative part that sometimes gets blocked by what's in front. And so that's why when you do something else, other ideas come through. A lot of times you wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, I got it.
Yeah. Believe me, I do a lot of that.
Yeah,
Those are great times to think for sure. So yeah, it's, you can get inspiration from everywhere, right?
exactly.
Okay. So what issues do you think are most important when designing a new website?
Okay, so websites, there's always two things that I tell people to consider right off the top. First of all, what do you want to tell people?
Mhm.
Right? So there's you trying to convey a certain amount of information or to your potential client. And then conversely, what do they want to get from you? Like, why are they going to come? So it's like those two things have to kind of fight with each other, and you have to balance. You have to balance what you want to tell them with what they want to come, and that can also be balanced out by how much free information are you willing to give away, because
Right.
often people come and they want free information. What is the function of your website? Is it for sales? Is it for fundraising? Is it a knowledge base? Like my website's a validator. Very seldom do people come to my website and go, "Oh, I want to hire them." I mean, I wish they would, but it doesn't really work that way. What
Yeah,
happens is
I think mine
I
is
go out and meet people, and then they go immediately to my website. It validates, am I who I said I was?
yeah.
And then does my work support the way I'm talking?
Right.
So I think that's a very important thing, is understand, is that the role of your website? And for a lot of small businesses and nonprofits, that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
not about, reeling people in as much as it's like being the presence for them after they've already learned a little bit about you and they want to learn more.
Right. I think mine's exactly the same, except that I did a little, I hired a company to do some SEO for me on my website a
Mhm.
couple, like 3, 4 years ago. Um, and you have your website and you hope people find you, right? Because that's kind of, you want them to Google, search and find you, or also have a place where they can go and learn more about you. And it took a couple years, but all of a sudden, and it's been probably 3 or 4 years now, I started getting a lot of inquiries from nonprofits because they Googled, search words,
Mhm.
New York City, nonprofit event planners, whatever they searched is in there. And I get a lot of work from my website now for
That's great.
nonprofit.
That's
And
really
it's
great.
so great. But it took, I don't know, 10 years, 9 years, 8 years, whatever it was. But I do get quite a lot of work. And I think, and they will send RFPs, like requests for proposals, not even talking to me. They'll see that I do nonprofits, and I probably could beef, I'm sure I can take a look at my website and do some beefing up on things. And I'm sure you probably looked at it too. If you see something, let me know. But I'm sure I could go back, because it's been a while since I've gone in and kind of changed things up. But it was in such a good state that I haven't had to do a lot of stuff to it. But I feel like it's time to kind of revamp and kind of freshen things up, as you said. So I'm
And
kind of,
having new content on the site's really important. And even doing stuff like this. So you have a live event that you can then post on your website, and then you can take it, use social media and all the tools that you are and going to use again to
yes,
promote back to your website, because
yes.
it's really about promoting through all the other channels that is going to bring you the most traffic.
Yeah, yeah. So it's great. I mean, it's working, and I'm definitely getting work from my website, which is such a great thing. So with social media platforms, do you really need a website anymore?
Well, I say yes, because it's very hard to close a job or close a sale over social media.
Right.
It's really good for making contacts. It's really good for getting your word out, promoting yourself. But ultimately, they need to come back to you, and that validator, like the home page of your Facebook page, like who even goes to that? It's like they just look at your posts and then they move on to something else. So
Exactly. They
what you
all
want them to do is go to your website where you can
right.
tell your story in your own way. It's like your real estate, it's like, mowing your lawn and keeping your house in good shape. It's like you
Yes.
want it to look nice. The street value is when people come and see you, and that's yours. So you don't want it to be just reliant on all these other things you have no control over.
Right, right. So, I use social media. I'm all over social media. I'm ramping up all my marketing right now. I've got teams I've hired and to help me in all different like people who are experts in Instagram and Pinterest and all of that. But it's a great way to, a call to action is to bring them. The idea is to use social media to bring them over to your website. So
Right.
I'm sure, even like, I guess, there are people that are finding me that way, but it's a great way to get them over to your website, and get them on an email list and all of that good stuff. There's so many things that go along with, I have an ebook that I offer, and I get their emails. So you want to get emails, which is a great place to do it, through an ebook or some kind of, PDF or whatever you want to give away, cheat sheet or whatever it is. And collect emails, because social media may not always be there. So you got to make sure that you're collecting emails and getting people's information so they can be on your list and they can learn who you are, about to like, know, and trust, all of that good stuff. So I think that's a great thing too. Okay, so why does the medium matter? Well, how does writing and designing for print differ from online?
So I wrote a piece on this a while ago, and it still gets a lot of hits. The difference between writing for online versus writing for web. And I think it's very interesting, because I'm still like, I love to read the newspaper. When I
Yeah.
teach my class on communication, I ask people students in the class, who reads newspapers? And they say, old people who are incapable of using devices. I'm like, okay, well,
I guess.
maybe. But I said, there's a very different, I said, one of the things about reading print is it's more whimsical. It's more likely to quote a lyric from your favorite song in a headline. It relies on communicating to you through a headline, photograph, image, and text, and call out. Like, all those things come together whenever you read or skim a print publication. But web is different because for the most part, you're getting your story through an alert or through search function. So the headlines are boring, and on purpose. So you'll have a headline that, might, quote an Elvis Costello song and say, less than zero or something like that, in print with a really cool photograph. Online, it will say, social media is infecting children or whatever. Like, it'll be a very dry, because no one's going to search less than zero. They're going to search, children, internet problems. They're going to search words like that.
Right.
So all those words are put in the headlines. And then how it's organized on the web is really different too. So it affects you when you're writing, because it certainly affects headlines and call outs and all the things that are used to attract you to the writing.
Right.
There's also a sense of abandonment. People don't read online as long, so you can't necessarily go deeper. So there's, you'll see that the features online tend to be shorter and sometimes a little pithier. But
right.
when you want to do a deep dive, pull out your newspaper.
Yeah. No, I mean, the attention span online is very quick. That's why stories is, a great thing on Instagram, because
Right.
people go there. They don't want to, they don't want to spend a lot of time. And so they're going through that, reels and all that stuff. Okay. So how does having a drawing table in your studio spark better communications?
Well, I don't know if you can see it anymore. My drawing table is right next to me.
Yeah.
And I found it used to be, collecting dust in the basement. And when I put it up here, it makes me feel more creative, but I also start using it more. So what I found is, and I just did this yesterday, I was working on a project and I wanted to send them an example of how it was going to look. Now, you can do it all on the computer, but I found that I'm more likely to take out my marker and sketch out something, which I can do quickly. And it's got a lot more fun to it. And it's got a lot more like, here's what I'm thinking of doing. And I do a quick scan, I send it to the client. I'm like, and they go, oh yeah, I get it. And I didn't spend all day building out this really tight layout. I just showed them, this is an idea. Like, this could be done as a tent card, or this could be done as a display with a quick sketch. And I find that having the table right here, it just inspires me to kind of go back to my roots as a cartoonist and an illustrator, which is something that I also do on Instagram all the time. So it's really fun to make that more of a permanent part of my skill set as a designer.
Yeah, your Instagram picture is very cute. It's very, I assume you drew that, right?
Yeah. And I draw a daily cartoon on Instagram as well. So it's fun to just kind of try out new ideas and not feel about it being like, it's published, so you have to get very serious. On Instagram, you just go, I'll get another one tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. So a little birdie tells me that you designed New Yorker wallpaper for the Algonquin Hotel.
That was one of my favorite projects.
Yeah.
I was always a fan of the New Yorker, and in fact, I proposed to my wife in the lobby of the Algonquin.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was where we got engaged. The Algonquin has the history of being where the Round Table met. Many of them were New Yorker writers, and somewhere along the line, I got a call from someone who said they wanted to create a wallpaper pattern in all the hallways, and I was able to meet with the New Yorker cartoon editor and select a combination of new and classic cartoons. And it's wallpaper, so you had to make sure that it didn't focus on one or two cartoons, which is hard.
Yeah.
So it was like coming up with a pattern that worked. But it was just like the fulfillment of a dream to be able to work with the New Yorker.
That's so cool. That's like almost full circle though, right? I mean, the fact that you got to do that, that's pretty awesome. Where you proposed, that's nice. Okay, so we do have a few questions that came in. So Lisa wants to know, what if my CEO comes in later and doesn't like the new brand?
Well, this is why we make sure that the CEO is there on day one.
Yeah.
And we often will not take the job if they're not willing or available to be there, because that's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, if we have all the assurances that they were told that we could do it without them, and now they want to make changes, well, that's when a change order comes in. So we will redefine the project, and we will bring them back in, and we will try to, in a sense, do a restart. So we have done that with the CEO, because the CEO sees like the process is going on, and oh, maybe I should be involved. So you want to get that buy-in. What's really important is that it's not just a last minute, put them in front of their face, go yes, no, next.
Right.
You want it to be, it's all about context. It's all about consensus. It's all about really understanding who the client is.
Yes. Yes, I agree. And it's so important to get the decision makers involved.
Right.
When I'm putting a proposal together, even when I'm dealing with a hotel and it's the event coordinator, the sales manager, I need the director of sales or the executive. I need them involved, because then I got to wait. It's third party. It makes me crazy. So I'm a little snobby when it comes to that, just because I've been doing it for so long. And no disrespect, but I got to move it along. The client wants to make a decision. I don't need to go back and forth with all of that. So I generally like to go right directly to the person that's going to give me all the answers that I need. So I get
a lot of times when we do a creative brief in that initial meeting, we ask for the CEO or the executive director to sign off.
So
even if they don't come to the meeting, it's like they need to at least approve the creative direction, because otherwise we're all kind of spinning our wheels. We really want everybody's input at the beginning.
Yeah, that's a great way to go about it. Okay, so Steve wants to know, what do you think of personal logos?
So I'm not a big fan. And I mean, if you're Martha Stewart, that's not a personal logo anymore. That's a business.
That's her brand, yeah.
And that's fine. So, and if I was talking to somebody the other day, we were doing a naming workshop, and we were talking about different types of names. And a very popular thing in naming right now is to name it for a person. Right. So, you have, Angie's, that was Angie's List, and Craigslist, and there's a person's name. That's not a personal logo. That's creating an identity for a company and using a personal name. That stuff is great. What I find kind of tiresome is when everybody has a logo, like people applying for jobs, like at design resumes, and they have a logo. And I'm like, I'm not really interested in the logo for you. I want to know if you can design logos for other people.
Right.
And I just don't think everybody needs logo. I think logos are oversold. I think because people think logos are what's going to turn their company around and make them serious. And as I've been saying all along, that's not what happens. The logo is reflecting the organization. So a lot of times it takes 5 or 6 years before a company finds its roots. As you were talking about your journey and how you flipped and flopped. I mean, that's good, because that's what you're doing. You're figuring out what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Right.
So sometimes I tell people, don't have a logo on day one. Have a logo 5 years from now.
Yeah, I say the same thing. So I'm so glad.
Communications, it doesn't have to be a logo.
Right. No, I actually just used, the name of my company. So saying that is, I have a question for you on this. Is there are a lot of people in the event industry who use their name. So like Annette Naif Events. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've heard that that's not good to do, but there's so many people, so many people in my industry do it, which I think, it is what it is, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I can't say much about it. My own company is Langton Creative. So, I have no problem with putting your name and kind of your stamp of approval. It's accountability. I always felt like, look, if my name is on the door, and my name is on the, the masthead, I'm the one who takes responsibility. So, and I think in your case, that's true as well.
Well, I have just my last name. So I'm talking full on name, Annette Naif Events. If I did something like that, I'm not going to, because I like my name, but other people do the same thing, and I heard that for sale purpose, if you're going to sell your company, it's not a good idea to do that.
That's true. Because it's you have to create something beyond just personally you.
Correct.
So if you're, and I go back to Martha Stewart, which is a full name,
right?
But it's like an entity now.
Right. Yeah,
more than just her as a TV personality.
Right.
It's a style. And, this, people like Oprah, you can't argue with that type of success, but it's really hard to build up companies that are that big on your own. And if you're trying to sell your company, it can be a real challenge, because once you sell your company and you're not there anymore, they're going to be calling for you or wondering why you're not there. And, it's very hard to sell small businesses anyway. So.
Yeah, it is. It is. I never ever think of that with my business, but I've also have, somebody that says any business, you can sell any business no matter what. So I don't know about that, but so that's interesting. Okay. So we have one last question. We're getting down here to the wire. This is such great information. And it's ironic that I woke yesterday, I got a bag that had different colors from my logo. So it was a really cool, it was like yellow and gray and white. It was just really, and I'm like, my branding's different. It's like a teal and a black and white. And I was like, I think I want to change my company colors to this. So I don't know if that's just, a day that I loved it, but it's kind of in my mind right now to change the colors, but I don't know if that matters. I don't think that really matters, but it's something different. So anyway, so Allison's asking, if you had to choose between a new website and a new logo, what would you choose?
Well, I always like to see, like, can you invest in I always tell people, try to invest in your logo first and then build out your website. But the reality is, if you only had a choice, I would build a website, because the website is going to be more functional, and you can always add the logo later. You can rebrand it down the road, but getting a website up and running with your critical information is going to be better for you. And as I said before, like if it's really like, if you got like a 5-year plan, get that website up immediately because you need it. And 5 years from now, rebrand it with a new logo.
Yeah. And you guys don't have to
base it on.
Yeah, right. I agree. And you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a website. Mine was, rinky dink when I first started.
Squarespace or Wix, and you
can WordPress.
A really good website to get started.
Exactly. WordPress is free and it has themes and it's not difficult. And you can get somebody to go in and help you with just a few pages, about you, your services. Blogging is important so you can get your messages out there and get some marketing materials and how to contact you. You don't have to get fancy in the beginning. And I didn't. So I remember my first website. I wish I could still see it because it would be kind of funny, but it doesn't matter, right? It's people, they're going to want to hire you for who you are and your abilities and all of that. So eventually you can make that grow. So great to have you. I love all of this information. You're super smart. It's obvious, like, you know what the heck you're doing. And I would really love, so how can people reach you? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are going to need your help.
So my website is langtoncreative.com. And my email is david@langtoncreative.com. And
okay, great.
Find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. And
Yes. Awesome. That's so great. I know Christy's going to add the information in the chat so everybody can get in touch with you. Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure. So much great information. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure too.
Okay. All right, you guys.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Thanks, David. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Have a fantastic weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye.